Golden Globes? Yeah, I said globes. Gold gloves. Long day. We'll get into it. Gold gloves. Former Indian managing in Chicago. How about arbitration? We will get into this on today's episode of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you podcast. And I want to take a second to say today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I'm going to say this is going to be a fun one. I had parent-teacher conference tonight, and I've been home maybe an hour since, a nice 12-hour day. So I'm a little loopy. And Justin's computer is giving him some issues. And we got some fun things to talk about, and we're going to have a lot of fun chatter. For those who don't know me, I am Jeff Ellis, one of the hosts of Locked On Guardians, as I have been since this whole thing came together. Before that, I was a lead draft and prospect analyst at Scout and 24/7, as well as many a Cleveland sports blog. Justin, tell them all about yourself.
Yeah, so my computer has decided you still want me to see my face for some reason. I should have that resolved here before the end of the week, or maybe going in the next week. Anyway, like Jeff, I have been around the block, many of Cleveland sports blogs, Burning River Baseball, ESPN Sweet Spot, Fansided, and I now manage Guardians Baseball Insider, which used to be Indians Baseball Insider, which used to be Indians Prospect Insider, and I also freelance for the Willoughby News Herald and the Lorain Morning Journal, covering Cleveland prospects.
Oh, should we lead off with the fun one? Do you want to take the reins? You're the one who discovered. I want to give you full credit about a former Cleveland first baseman who is going to be managing in Chicago.
That's right. A first baseman slugger from the Cleveland Indians days got a job in Chicago as a manager. It is Richie Sexson. Yeah, we all thought you were going to say Jim Thome, right? No, Richie Sexson will be the manager of the Windy City Thunderbolts of the Frontier League. Interesting. I don't know. Richie Sexson obviously was a guy from the 90s, but thought it was funny to bring up because there have been some whispers about Jim Thome potentially being a fit for the White Sox managerial job, or might hire. I don't know if he's a fit, if they're going to hire him or not. He works in the organization, but there have been people on the Chicago beat who follow the team closely and who are also beat writers that have talked about him at least being a candidate. So those two are good friends back from their Cleveland days. I was a big Richie Sexson guy when I was a kid. I thought he was a good player. I got an autograph from him when I was like 10 years old, maybe younger. And he was at a card shop in my hometown. And the woman who owned the card shop used to have a table that everyone sat at when they came in to give autographs. Like Manny Ramirez came in there, Bartolo Colon came in there. And Richie Sexson did not fit at the table. He was too tall. Had to move the table. He had to sign, I think, the stuff on like some kind of like a stand or something. He was too tall to sit at the table. And I asked him if he ever played basketball, and he said no. So I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know. It was a good experience. I enjoyed the interaction. Seemed like a nice guy.
One of those many like bad trades that kind of happened. It was the Jason Beret, Woodard, but maybe also Bob Wickman. Like maybe that's kind of a saving grace. But Woodard was supposed to be the big guy, and he was terrible.
Yeah,
I thought Zach Jackson came over in the from Toronto.
There might have been two Zach Jacksons, I think, but no, Zach Jackson was in with the Woodard. So Wickman was for sure the crux of the trade for Cleveland. They needed a reliever, but that was also the year that they went through like a record 27 pitchers or something, and they had Beret and Woodard start.
And was it like Beret pitched one game too? That was like the thing. Like one, like much like John Smiley. One of them got like one game in, then his arm fell off. I mean, Smiley didn't even get a game in, but someone was one game. That was when I went to college. So that was 2000.
Poor John Smiley.
I distinctly remember. Listen, trades in the Hart era didn't go well. Let's just.
You mean Ricardo Rincon and Brian Giles was not a good trade? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Jeremy
sure?
Burnitz for Mark Clark.
Jeremy Burnitz, what a player.
The prequel to the Richie Sexson trade was that one.
He did trade Bartolo Colon for Grady Sizemore. That was a John Hart trade.
Was it? I thought that was after I thought that was Shapiro.
Oh, you know what?
That was the first move of his rebuild.
You're right. That was Shapiro. I'm sorry. Yeah. You're right. Okay.
So, and I think maybe Taubensee for Lofton. Taubensee for Lofton might have been him, but that might have been right before him as well.
Was John Hart or was it Hank Peters who made the Joe Carter for Alomar and Bayer trade?
That was Peters.
Okay.
Because that's the thing.
Yeah,
like Randy Ramirez was a Hank Peters. Jim Thome, who we just talked about, was Hank Peters. Brian Giles was Hank Peters. Albert Bell was Hank Peters. I wrote about this extensively when I was at Indians Prospect Insider, but like Hank Peters. So before Hank Peters was this, I can't think who the GM was, but he was the GM for 30 years and he never had a season over 500. Welcome to sports in the 70s and 80s where you didn't have to be good and you could keep your job. Peters was only the GM for like 4 years, but his 4 years represent more WAR, a positive generation of value from like 4 drafts than every other GM combined. Mm-hmm. Like it's your 90s Indians are, like I said, I think, trading for Omar Vizquel was under Hart. But I think Lofton was before him. I could be wrong with that, but Manny Ramirez was also, that was the last of the Hank Peters drafts was Manny Ramirez. So yeah.
People don't realize that most of what they did good started with Hank Peters, not really John Hart. John Hart just kind of,
he was good at free agency.
He's good at free agency, and he was the guy that got all those guys signed to pre-arb deals.
Yes,
Peters had a hand in that, but that was mostly Hart. So Hart, Peters built it, Hart maintained it, and then sent it off to Shapiro and Antonetti and all that, which is amazing to think about. We're talking about GMs here. Go back, Cleveland has not had the Indians Guardians haven't had a lot of GMs. You've had Peters to Hart to Shapiro to Antonetti. That's 4 going back to what, like 88?
Yeah, I mean, no, Chernoff's technically what the
I
think
right,
86. Okay. I think 86. Because I want to say the 87 draft was Peters' first.
So that's what, 6 GMs though since 86. Yeah. That's pretty good. I would at some point this offseason we should take a look at how many teams have changed GMs since that year and see how.
I think the Mets have had 6 in the last 2 years, right?
Yep, that's about right.
If you count the ones that were like GM for a day.
Oops.
It's Hank Peters definitely one of the people who deserves so much more praise than he ever gets. And he built the 90s Indians. Like there's no other way around it. More than Hart, he built the 90s Indians. Everyone who you really look at, like I said, Hart was a genius with free agency. He signed the vets who didn't break. Shapiro's free agency. You don't want to look at your drafts. You don't want to look at the drafts for Hart or Shapiro. It is, you want to talk about why this team imploded after that time. It's because neither Hart nor Shapiro could draft to save their souls.
But Hart did draft Richie Sexson in the 24th round. And
he did. And I believe he drafted, he drafted CC Sabathia, but it's like, I mean, that's the only first rounder who turned into anything. I mean, literally, Tim Drew might be a top 3 first rounder from the Shapiro era just because he got to the big leagues. I was regaling you with stories after we finished yesterday's podcast of David Miller, former Clemson first baseman, as we reminisced about Danny Peoples and Scott Morgan and when I first started my love affair of minor league baseball. And now that we have alienated the whole audience going deep, there's like 4 people who are really excited and everyone else has turned it off. Thank you to the 4 of you.
What are you talking about?
If you spent some time in any of the minors in the 90s, this might have been a fun throwback ride. We're gonna take our first break here. We're gonna come back. We're gonna talk about the Gold Glove Awards because there were some fun hot takes. There were hot trash, and the Guardians have a lot of finalists. So we'll get into that, and then we're gonna also talk about some of the arbitration estimates that came out as well on today's Locked On Guardians. So our first sponsor, and listen, if you've been paying attention, if you are, like one of my students and you are paying attention in class, then you know our sponsor is going to be the good folks over at Bet Online. And Bet Online has you covered. That's right. I'm going to pun away at the start here. They're your number one source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. Hey, I'm also going to go off script and say hockey as well. They cover it, and hockey is going strong. I saw the Blue Jackets won tonight, 2 in a row. Find all the latest player developments, team matchup, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. As always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-mid scores for every sport. Fastest and easiest way to check on all of your favorite games, including the MLB, MMA, boxing, golf, and again, I will add in hockey. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
I sure wish I could give some kind of line on Guardians versus Astros, but I'm sitting here watching Yankees Astros. I will say I did have a parlay tonight of I came so close. I had Framber Valdez 7 Ks. I had Kyle Tucker with a hit. I had Bregman with an RBI, and I had Jeremy Pena scoring a run. And I came within one Jeremy Pena run of scoring. He didn't score a run, but everything else happened. So close.
No, I could I have bet on if I had paid attention? Harrison Bader going deep. I don't know if he's done it. I said again, I've been talking to parents all evening. I haven't watched any of the game. I assume Harrison Bader is 5 for 5 with 5 home runs based on what he has done over the past week. But he did hit leadoff tonight. So that's new. It's the recency bias. It's always the thing. I'm like, oh, is that the right call? Do you want to risk getting him out of the? He's in the zone. I wouldn't mess with it. The zone is a weird thing. Some guys can live in it. Don't mess with it. Guys in the zone. So Gold Glove finalists. We're gonna skip over the ones where Cleveland isn't represented because do you really want to talk about the debate in right field? I don't think so. So let's jump to center field. Cedric Mullins, Myles Straw, Michael A. Taylor. Michael A. Taylor, I believe, won the award last year. Myles Straw is clearly the best defender, but there was I'm not going to quote the account because 1, I don't have it handy, and 2, he's clearly a moron. It's someone bragging about having worked in baseball, and who said that. So I want to read this. In 1957, the baseball glove manufacturer Rawlings created the Gold Glove Award to commemorate the best fielding performance at each position. So only has to do with fielding.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I said, I don't even think we want to bring attention to this guy, but someone made the argument that you couldn't give it to Straw because he didn't hit well enough. A Gold Glove.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone who doesn't understand the game at all, but is somehow in the game. So clearly it's Jim Bowden. If you want to find 100%. Someone who has, doesn't understand baseball, but once was someone in baseball, that's your best contender. Maybe Dan O'Dowd, based on some of his things we hear on draft night. I could keep throwing people out there, but I shouldn't throw shade if I ever hope to have any history or any future in this business. All I have is history in this business.
Right. Same here.
But what a dumb statement. Like Myles, here's the thing. I talked about it during the season. I pulled up the data, and it's really fun to go and look at offensive effectiveness versus defensive runs saved. And you basically realize that Myles Straw is Omar Vizquel. Like they are very similar in terms of definitely nothing off the field. And then definitely not in terms of position, though they're both up the middle talents. And everyone's like, oh, we need to get rid of Straw. I hate to break it to you. The Guardians love his defense, and they value that so much that anything he gives them is bonus. Like they signed him to a contract purely for his defense, and he is going to be the center fielder until that contract expires. He's not going anywhere. I don't think they're going to bench him. Yeah, was it a down year? Absolutely. Did we all think he'd do better? I think so. But I think at the end of the day, what he brings in terms of defense, he ended up with almost the same WAR as Ahmed because Ahmed's defense is so bad. They're almost the same value because one guy's defense is so good and his offense is so terrible, and one's offense was so solid and his defense was so bad. I think their WARs were very close. So, Myles Straw should be the defensive center fielder. He's the best defensive center fielder in baseball right now for my money. And Justin, your thoughts on Myles Straw?
Yeah, just watching him every day, I'd have to agree with you. And if you look at the numbers, there were some guys left off the center fielder list, like Jose Siri. ended up with one more out above average. He was at 14, Straw at 13. Of the guys that made the list, Straw is far and away the best center fielder on that list. 91% catch rate success, 3% success rate added. I mean, every number backs this. And I don't know how many of these because like the Gold Glove Award is voted on by coaches in the league and managers, and they can't vote for their own players. So probably most of these guys are not looking at outs above average. Let's be honest. But yeah, Jose Siri was kind of the one guy off the center field list that confused the heck out of me, because not that Taylor and Mullins didn't have good years defensively, but if you go on there, Mullins is at 8, Straw's at 13, and Taylor is at 5 outs above average. So to me, of the guys there, it's got to be Straw. And the other spots, I think the only one that's going to be a challenge is Andres Gimenez. Jonathan Scope, his defensive numbers this year
were otherworldly. I mean, he probably, but I'll say this, it's interesting. The defensive run saved. Do you know who there was? Brendan Rodgers blew everyone away, and Scope was further down, but you look at outs above average, and Gimenez is number 2 in defensive run saved. I don't even know how I feel about defensive run saved. There's just so few metrics that I pulled it up so we'd have some argument.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to trust. It seems like outs above average is like
it's definitely the one I trust
the most. Yeah. I would bet on Kwan and Straw winning, and then I would probably bet Scope on beating out Gimenez, and I would probably say Jose finishes in second at
Chapman's there, right? Still, he's
yeah.
It's hard to get better than Chapman's been at his peak.
So and then we didn't even mention Shane Bieber's on the list, which
yes. So that's the reason I went to DRS, because we were trying to find anything to be definable for pitchers, because there just isn't anything.
Yeah, like if you ask anybody who watched the games this year, besides like anybody who works in baseball, and just be like, oh, who did you think was a great fielding pitcher this year? And I would have been like, I don't know, because that's such a hard thing to look at, because sometimes it's just like luck with pitchers fielding, because they get the ball hit back to them, and it's just about like reaction and sometimes just getting their glove out to knock stuff down and not getting nailed by a line drive. So I don't know how to evaluate that. I'll just trust whoever they go with there. I know this is probably the one spot where the award isn't a sham, right? Because we always talk about how even though that tweet from that guy was incredibly stupid about Myles Straw, he's not wrong. Like they usually do vote based on
Rafael Palmeiro.
Well, he played one game. Yeah, they always vote for the guy who like had a good defensive season, but they always favor the guy that had the best offensive numbers to go with it. So it was never like in the National League, Victor Robles is the nomination, one of the nominees in center field. Terrible offensive player. He's probably going to win, but no, maybe he won't win. Maybe there's a center fielder in the National League that will win because he hit better than him. It could be Trent Grisham, Trent Grisham didn't have a great year either.
No, he didn't hit very well either.
Yeah, I don't know, but sometimes they do vote based on like the best hitter, best fielding hitter. I don't know. So he's not wrong, but hey, at least you know what pitchers, you don't got to worry about that, right?
Well, I mean, in center field, no one's got like Alec. I loved Alec Thomas as a draft prospect. I still believe in him, but he got sent down to the minors for struggling. There is no offensive guy there.
No.
How about, just a side note, like I spent so much time talking about Ian Happ. How about Ian Happ being now after being like known as a butcher to get nominated in left field that's quite the man. He would have looked nice. Many of us spent many. I mean, you and I were trading tweets at points with Ian Happ trades. That would have been a fun get. But yeah, I do
Juan
like
Soto in right field.
Maybe the worst defender in baseball. I did like that they add the utility position. I thought that was I don't pay enough attention to these awards. I'm not sure when that was added, but I'm like that's something that should have always been.
That's new this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So there you go. Andres Gimenez at second, Jose Ramirez at third, Stephen Kwan in left, Myles Straw in center, and Shane Bieber as a pitcher. So I don't know the Bieber. Who knows about pitcher? But I would say Kwan and Straw, and then I think Gimenez and Ramirez will not win, and then maybe Bieber will, because who the heck knows? That's so confusing.
I'm going to do this. We should probably throw to our second commercial break, but when we come back, Justin, I want you to answer one question for me. Who do you think is going to win the Gold Glove of catcher? When we come back, we will discuss that in a moment on the show. The answer might surprise you. And we're back. Is your answer going to surprise people, Justin?
It might. I was actually going to try to grab some stats, but my first inclination was to give it to Sean Murphy, and I don't know if that's going to be true, but I think it might be. Sean Murphy has a lot. Again, like we said, a lot of this is track record and offensive stats. So I don't know. If I had to guess, I'm saying Sean Murphy, even though he's probably not. Other guys probably had better.
Jose Trevino was good. I think he was the DRS guy since I got sucked into DRS before this. For those who don't know, DRS stands for defensive run saved. If you want to know how it's calculated, you're going to have to Google it. I don't actually have that answer.
Go to Fangraphs. I don't know.
But, Trevino, here's the thing about the Yankees. They're easy to hate. The second thing is give them credit, even if you don't want to, because they went all in. It's like Montas and Trevino, that trade didn't work. Scott Efros got hurt. Andrew Benintendi's hurt. But Trevino was another guy they traded for. They almost traded for an entire team over the course of this year to try to make it to the postseason.
Yeah, don't forget IKF too.
Yeah.
And they traded for Andrew Benintendi for defense too, and he got hurt. So
yeah, it's crazy how many moves they went out and made. But yeah, I think Murphy with a chance to go back to back, it seems very likely. Complete player. Like, you and I were talking about his Fangraph stuff. So many people are so set on the idea of Bo Naylor that they still don't want to even consider Sean Murphy in a trade. I just want to go ahead and mention one name in particular that makes it so I don't think you could, classic example of why you can never be super set. Go look up Spencer Torkelson, who was most people's Rookie of the Year favorite, or his teammate Riley Green.
My hand.
And, you can see that counting on anyone to be sure is never a sure bet. And, I think they're still going. This team puts such a valuation on catcher. Do you think they're just going to go all in on a rookie next year?
They haven't done it. I mean, if you go back and look at the catchers they have had, Perez was a midseason call-up because Yan Gomes was hurt. It took him a while to get up there. Obviously, and none of the guys they've had ever had the track record of Bo Naylor, to be fair. The last guy that really had any track record for them was Sandy Alomar. Like, I don't know, you can't really count Enar Diaz. And, I'm sorry, Victor Martinez probably, but that was...
Carlos Santana.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, he had a high, but they didn't go to him until midseason either. I can't even tell you who. I think Josh Bard was catching before him.
Was it? No, it was not. It was Lou Marson.
Before Santana? No, I think it was Josh Bard, wasn't it? Oh, you're right. No, it was
Marson, because Marson was part of, because they traded Lee and Blake at the same deadline, right? And then Marson was the diminished asset, just like Jason Donald. So they gave both those guys opportunities before going to the next rung.
And then it's funny that Marson got hurt to give way to Yan Gomes in 2013. That was basically the end of Marson's career because he got hurt on a collision home plate, his shoulder. And that gave way to Yan Gomes to catch. And Yan Gomes was a sleeper trade from Toronto for Esmil Rogers.
Yeah, good old Esmil Rogers. They got Mike Aviles in that deal as well.
That's right. Great trade for them there. It was an Antonetti trade. But none of their catchers have ever they never had a rookie start the season. Like, it's always been they transitioned to the rookie like mid-season, and it's been Victor Martinez I think came up in 2003, and that was late in the year, and then Santana was
very late,
and Gomes was kind of called up on a fluke and just kind of took control of the job, and then Perez came up as a defensive guy replacement because Gomes got hurt. Like, they've never had a rookie catcher start the season for them, I think, since Sandy Alomar.
Yeah, and I know other people be like, it's only half a year. Well, again, catcher's a hard position, A, and B,
and it's going to get harder next year. It's going to get harder.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more wear and tear at that position with the rule changes. And I think just kind of looking at the way things line up, they could depend, they're going to have to figure out exactly how they want to handle it. But I wouldn't be shocked in the near future if teams carry someone who's, near the bottom, not necessarily a third catcher, but someone who has extensive experience back there. Like with the rule change, I think it's going to be a lot more demanding on catchers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to be clear, the rule changes, in case anybody's not sure, is pitchers can only step off or throw over twice and at bat. So if the guy batting, there's a runner on first with someone batting, the pitcher can step off or throw over twice during that one at bat. And if he does that a third time, throws over and he doesn't get the guy out at first, the guy gets to go to second. If he gets the guy at the plate out and the next guy comes up, it resets. He can do it 2 times again and have a third chance, but he goes to second or third if he doesn't get him out. So pitchers are going to have a hard time holding runners next year, which I think accentuates the need for having a catcher with a good pop time and a good track record of throwing runners out. And, we're still waiting on robo-umps to take away the issue of framing. Although I will say, I think I've heard that Bo Naylor's framing this year. I'd have to go look at Baseball Prospectus's minor league database. They have a great database for catcher stats. I think Bo Naylor had a good season framing.
He did.
But Brian Lavacita also did last season as well. So take that for what it's worth. But
I think the pitcher clock is also going to contribute to a little more wear and tear just because of there isn't that ability you got to stay in the crouch. There isn't kind of that ability between. I feel like you're going to see the pitches coming more. You're going to see a lot more movement. You're going to have to be a lot more up and down between, the throw with more base running being encouraged. And we might see more pitches going wild and things like that just from the rush to get the ball to the plate. I think
good defense is going to matter a lot more next year behind the plate.
Catcher defense is going to jump in value. And I think, again, Bo Naylor is he a top 5 prospect for me? If he's not, he's just outside. He's definitely top 6. I would have to really sit down and nail it out for me. No pun intended there. That just came together on its own. But, I think if you can nail down again, unintentional, I swear to God, if you can get that position set, it is so hard to find good catching. There's extreme value. And the honest goodness truth is, let's say Naylor turns into a monster. Let's say he turns into a superstar, gets that chance to get his feet wet. Sean Murphy is going to be pretty much just as valuable in a year. And you might be able to, go out and flip him for assets to help your minor leagues rebalance, or to, maybe you could work out. Almost never see in baseball, is there a weird world where you could work out some kind of, the Guardians do love a 3-teamer. I mean, they're one of the few teams that will do that, but it's like, could they figure something out in a year that helps them maybe add pitching, especially if they, when Shane Bieber's near the end of his time here. But yeah, I don't think let's put it this way. I think you're crazy if you think catching is set for next year.
Yeah. I like Bo Naylor. Look, I stayed high on him last year, despite his down 2021 or coming into the season. I thought the bloodlines, the character, the makeup, all that stuff, on top of the fact that he was young for the level, the missed year 2020, how hard they've pushed him aggressively assignment wise. And you talk about the rigors of catching. I stayed steady on his value, thinking that he would rebound in 2020. And not that I'm great at this, because I definitely have had plenty of misses, but I thought it was worth giving him a mulligan in terms of what value was there and who he could be. And I think he showed that, but that doesn't mean you hand him the catching job from day one next year. Not if you can't go out. Now, look, if they can't go out and upgrade the spot. If you can't land a Sean Murphy, who I think is a number one target on a lot of people's lists, mine, probably yours, and they've already shown interest in him in the past, and they've made past trades with Oakland. But so, like, if you strike out on Sean Murphy, whoever else is out there, then yeah, you might as well go to Bo Naylor. But I think the first option is, and Cleveland will never do it because they never want to have themselves burned. But you could devise a game plan where both Murphy and Naylor are in the lineup. Now they'll be like, oh, if one of the guys gets hurt, we're screwed, But you can definitely
you're screwed for. Here's my view on that. Just to sorry to interrupt. Like if it goes awry, you're screwed for one game. If they work together and you make it work, it could help you win 5 games. Over the course of a year, 10 games over the course of the year by getting 2 of your better hitters in the lineup. Then I say you do it. Like, okay, so there's always the potential you might have one game go awry, but so you have one game go. I kind of interrupt because I hate that thing. It's like, well, what happens if things go bad? It's not the postseason, okay? It's
I agree with
regular season game. No, I know. I'm not criticizing you. I'm criticizing the thought, which is probably actually what the team's thought would be.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's why you didn't see Bo Naylor ever get into a game in the postseason, because they just are so fearful of not having a third catcher on the bench. On the bench.
Yeah, with the way Tito values and looks at that position, would he? I feel like he would be pushing for a veteran catcher more than anyone else.
Yeah, for a while this season, I was team re-sign Austin Hedges. I was thinking great mentor for Bo Naylor. Turn over to Bo Naylor next year. Let Hedges be the backup. Great learning guy, great clubhouse guy. Bo Naylor can be your starter. If you need to go to defense late in the game, you put in Hedges. If you start Hedges and you need a pinch hitter late in the game, you've got Bo Naylor. That could still work out, but
he looks a little cooked though.
Yeah, there were some throwing issues late in the season behind the dish, and I actually looked at his pop time, and his pop time has declined in the last 2 years. Sean Murphy has, has like top 5 in the league in pop time, and I think Hedges fell like 28th or something. And pop time is going to matter so much next year.
Yeah, I had heard reports. Now this isn't his average. When he was in college, some people had him like in the 1.7 range. I think he told me in the 1.9s was his average this year. He has always been known for otherworldly pop. Like he has some points where he is, as quick as anyone. Whereas Hedges, I don't know if it's just the load that he's had to bear. And the thing to remember, it's like, he has been a full-time catcher for, before he got to Cleveland as well. He was San Diego's full-time. I just worry that he's a little cooked, that he's a little, that is a position that wears you down.
Yeah. And not to mention, we just talked about Cleveland's pitchers, especially relievers, did not do a great job of holding runners on this year. Like we talked about, Shane Bieber allowed 9 steals off of him all season in 200 innings. And I think Trevor Stephan and James Karinchak both had like 11 steals off of them in less than half the innings. So, just because Hedges didn't have a good season throwing out runners doesn't mean that he's bad at it. A lot of that goes to the pitcher, but it's going to be harder next year for the pitcher to hold runners on. So you need somebody out there to make up for it. Yeah, Sean Murphy, 1.89 pop time this season. And Austin Hedges was 1.95. I know you're thinking, well, that's 0.4 seconds. That 0.4 seconds matters. Trust me, it matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a reason why one was number 1 and one was 28th.
Yeah. Murphy was 4. JT Realmuto was 1.82 for JT Realmuto. Unbelievable. That's why he got a fat contract. Okay.
Yeah.
And he can hit. He is the gold standard catcher.
It's the advantage when you have that advantage there. It's kind of like, having I used to compare it to like having the ace tight end that no one can like block. It just gives you such a positional advantage at a position that most people don't get value out of. So when you can sit there and have a guy that is that good when most people are running out, Austin Hedges types, it allows you to make up for weaknesses at other spots on your team, other spots in the lineup. Like when you get catcher nailed down with a positive offensive contributor, And Murphy had a 120 something runs created plus this year. That just helps your lineup. I mean, it's so if you do stick with Straw, which again I think they are going to do, it's like it helps balance that out. It helps eliminate a spot that almost every team is going to have one or two kind of black hole situations. This allows you to eliminate one of the most common ones.
Yeah, look, good World Series contenders. Very few have black holes in their lineup. Cleveland had at least 2 or 3 in the postseason. Definitely 2 with Straw and Hedges. I mean, Hedges, it might as well have been a pitcher up there hitting.
Mike Hampton would have hit better than him. Does anyone else remember Mike Hampton pinch hitting he would pinch hit for pitchers.
The guy who moved to Colorado for the school district, is that what you're saying? Anyway.
I mean, I think it was the $14 million contract at the time, but
yeah, or it was like $14 million a year. Yeah. No, but you're right. That's a great point. If Myles Straw, if you're running it back next year with Myles Straw in center field, you have got to eliminate one of your light hitting spots in the lineup. You can't go out there and get another Austin Hedges offensive season. One of those 2 spots has to be shored up. And even if Myles Straw is slightly better offensively than this year, which I think he is, I don't think he's this bad, but he might not be a plus hitter or an above average hitter. But yeah, you need to shore up one of those spots, and we'll have plenty of this time this winter to talk about Sean Murphy and that fit, I think.
So just for fun, because I'm me, Mike Hampton, 845 plate appearances, a 650 OPS. So yeah, he was better than many parts of the lineup over the course. Better than Straw, better than Hedges at a 650 OPS. So
wait,
just thought
Hampton had a 650 OPS.
Yeah, in 845 plate appearances. Yeah, throughout his career. He had some seasons.
Hedges this year was 489.
Yeah, I mean Hampton had, let's see, at peak he had an 891 with 86 plate appearances.
Yeah, Austin Hedges for his career 578.
Yeah, so Mike Hampton is a better hitter than Austin Hedges. Like we can just blanket say that, and it's true. So you can't help but laugh, right? Like I can make a blanket statement that like a 5'10" left-handed pitcher who hit right-handed was better offensively than our catcher.
And look, that doesn't mean this is not a bash Austin Hedges thing. We know how he was the team.
He's a heart and soul piece. Like part of me wants to be like, well, if you can't re-sign him, how quickly can we make this guy a coach? Like, it's like
somebody will sign him in the offseason.
Yes,
he's 30.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, would they, if they're not going to bring back Hedges, would they ever consider Berto again? Or is Berto like on an MLC just because he's like, no one's going to give him money after another injury. I mean, that guy's made of tissue paper, but I wonder what they're going to do. We didn't even get into arbitration on today's show because we had so much fun with everything else. But it's like Luke Maile, they're not going to give him 1.2, which is what he's projected to get in arbitration. So it's like they could be looking for 2 catchers when the time comes around.
Yeah, because when the season officially ends, if they non-tender Luke Maile, your only 2 catchers on the 40 are Naylor and Lavastida. I don't think they're going to roster David Fry, but he is in the AFL, and I will say, if you're looking for a catcher throwing out runners, it is not David Fry. He is not throwing any runners out in the AFL right now.
I mean, did he's basically there because they didn't have him catch during the season because they didn't want him catching for their own prospects. So I mean,
they had Lavastida and Naylor catching.
I know they had that, but it also felt like they just okay. So in a way, David Fry is exactly what I'm talking about. Like if you're going to have a 26-man roster, like there you go. If you're going to run out Naylor and Murphy, and you're going to have them maybe both in a lineup at the same time because they're good enough hitters and good enough athletes, and you can get them both in. David Fry is your perfect 26-man.
Because he can play first and third as well, and he's not a terrible bat.
No, he's not. He had good power numbers this year. Like that's exactly what guys like him are going to gain value in that situation. Maybe this is all a long game. Like they added David Fry last year for JC Mejia, knowing they were going to go out and get Sean Murphy this offseason. I'm gonna internalize that and
is that a conspiracy theory?
Make it an external hope. And he's a right-handed bat, David Fry as well. So, we always need more of those in Cleveland. And so I'm going to hope that my internalization will make this become external. Is that a thing? I'm going to wish it into existence.
You could be. I mean, hey, I'm there. We think they're gonna have room on the 40-man roster to maybe do this now. Like, it's not as dire as it was a year ago. And
No.
if you want to get real interesting with it, David Fry versus left-handed pitchers this year, a 813 OPS compared to a 720 against right-handers. So if you need a guy who can hit left-handed pitching off the bench.
And then you can let, you can figure out a way that so when he is in, someone is having an off day because your catchers always need rest. And this could work. I think we should just manage the team. That's my takeaway. We've got a whole plan in place. We'll get the trade done. Yeah. What I know not everyone's going to love it. So make sure to let us know here in the comments below on the YouTube. Remember to download daily and tell a friend. We are, going to continue with this fun, great content. We have been talking about what we are going to do all off season already. We got things lined up, and then the conversations are so good. We're 40 minutes and we didn't even get to arbitration today. We'll get to that, the arbitration element estimates for next week. And if you have not subscribed on YouTube, we're at 780. That last 220 would be huge for us. So please go and subscribe on your friend's account as well. If you just see a YouTube page looking open, go ahead, subscribe to Locked On Guardians. No one's paying attention to all their subscription. I'm kidding. Don't play with other people's stuff. But if you have not, please
pay attention to your subscriptions, please.
Yeah, please do. Thank you again for listening. And just been listen. It was a cruddy week, but also a fun week because we got to do this podcast. Any last thoughts? Any players that we didn't get to talk to? We did get to showcase David Fry in today's episode. So who did we miss?
I'm just gonna no sell you on that response. You're gonna do that to me every time. I'm gonna work.
I'm having fun with it for now. I'm gonna have to figure. It's gonna be like our Where's Waldo is me throwing the word showcase.
I'm clocking out for the week.
Fair enough. I've been Jeff Ellis for Justin. I would like to say, go Guardians, go.